Hydro Archon Genshin Impact's Furina coming out in 4.2 should be finalized by now. She's getting buffs as well as maybe some nerfs depending on your perspective. So let's tackle the finalized version of Furina's skills and abilities. Yes, we had another dream. We love dreaming here about future characters. If you want to see stuff like that and other content on Genshin Impact, drop that sub. So first and foremost, let's talk about some buffs to Furina.
Provocation, a bald-faced challenge.
Now her elemental skill, Salon Solitaire, is going to be a little changed here. You could call it a buff, you could call it a nerf. I think it's going to be a buff here. Basically what we're going to have is when you summon the 3 little pets, they are going to take turns doing damage. And the change that happened to Furina is they actually drain more health than they used to. Now, this is going to be a very small amount of change. One of the pets used to drain 2% HP. Now it's going to be 2.4%. One of them did 3%. Now it's 3.6%. So why would this be a buff instead of a nerf? Well, because of her elemental burst, you gain stacks based on changes in HP, both positive changes where you heal your character or negative changes where you lose health. What this is going to allow you to do, since you're losing more health, you'll be able to take some damage and then heal it back up, and possibly not heal it completely with just one tick of each of these pets' attacks. So it's going to allow you to use certain small things that heal. Think of perhaps someone like Baizu and the small rapid heals you get from that. You're going to be able to heal a little bit more often because you're going to be draining a tiny bit more health off of all of your party members. So this can be a tiny bit of a buff for Furina in her elemental skill. But as far as the elemental skill itself, nothing else changed. The duration's still the same, the cooldown's still the same, still that very lovely 30-second duration, 20-second cooldown. Now let's talk about something else, the elemental burst. This got changed in quite a few ways, but let's touch on the base version first.
Oh, is that so?
Now, the biggest thing from her elemental burst is that there's 2 changes here. It still has an 18-second duration, but instead of it having an 18-second cooldown, it now has a 15-second cooldown, meaning that you can overlap your activation of Let the People Rejoice and sort of make your rotation a little bit easier than it was before. But most importantly, you have 3 whole seconds of leeway to reactivate the elemental burst. And from what I can see and what I've dreamed, it doesn't actually say that reactivating the elemental burst wipes your stacks of fanfare. Instead, what it says is when the duration ends, your fanfare stacks will be reset. And this is a very big thing because you have that 3 seconds to reactivate her elemental burst and maintain your fanfare stacks. This is going to help for a lot of teams that may not be able to fully max out all of her fanfare stacks in those first 18 seconds. And what's really helpful here is that once you basically hit max fanfare stacks with the right build, you should always have those fanfare stacks until the battle ends. And there's going to be a couple other buffs here at Constellation 0. Not only did the duration and cooldown have that 3-second window of opportunity for you to gain a maximum advantage from, but now the energy cost has gone from 70 energy down to 60 energy. She's still going to need energy recharge, but you're not going to need as much as before. You can go ahead and knock off maybe 20%, 25% at least energy recharge on a lot of your popular teams because you need 10 whole less points of elemental burst energy so you can maintain your elemental burst uptime 100% of the time. Now, there is also one other small change at Constellation 0, and this comes to the amount of fanfare stacks you can have and the damage bonus you get for each fanfare stack. These have been finagled with a little bit. You're going to gain a little bit more damage bonus per fanfare stack, which is going to be 0.25% bonus. And at Constellation 0, you're going to be able to have 300 stacks of fanfare. At maximum stacks, how much damage bonus is going to get you for your entire party? Well, that's going to be 75% damage bonus to Furina and everyone else in your team. And remember, now that you can maintain this 100% uptime due to that 15-second cooldown, 18-second duration, that could be 75% damage bonus for the entire battle once you maintain and achieve those 300 fanfare stacks. There is one tiny nerf to her elemental burst, and that's actually the damage that you do when you activate it. It used to be about a 30% HP multiplier. It's been reduced down to about a 20% HP multiplier. Nothing crazy there as far as nerfing Furina's overall kit. In fact, the changes to her elemental burst that we just talked about make her much more usable, fun to play, engaging, and powerful all at the same time. But not everything's coming up roses for our favorite Hydro Archon. There are going to be some things that you guys might see as a buff for constellations or a nerf for constellations, depending on what you wanted to do with your Furina in her gameplay style. Now, the biggest change that you guys might be interested in is they actually swapped her Constellation 2 in her Constellation 6. So now her Constellation 2 is going to affect fanfare stack gain. It now says, while Let the People Rejoice lasts, Furina's fanfare gain from increases or decreases in nearby characters' HP is increased by 250%. Each point of fanfare above the limit will increase Furina's max HP by 0.35%. Her maximum max HP increase is 140%. So this one could be a buff to your build, it could be a nerf to your build, and also it could change the way you want to build your character, because there's not a lot of ways to increase a character's maximum HP in Genshin Impact from team buffs, and this leads to a lot of which goblet should I use, an HP percent goblet, should I use a Hydro goblet? And one of the ways you're going to be able to maybe go after a Hydro goblet is if you have something like this Constellation 2, and the C2 is going to make your Hydro goblet and HP percent goblet very relatable damage wise. And honestly, the best one, if you have C2, it's going to come down basically to substats, because you're going to be able to gain 140% HP increase on your Furina. On top of this, it's also going to expedite how fast you gain your stacks from fanfare. And because you have C2, you are also going to have the C1, which allows you to gain an increased maximum limit of another 100 fanfare stacks. However, it also is going to give you 150 fanfare stacks as well upon activation. So you don't really need to gain necessarily your fanfare stacks faster from C2, but it is something that you can have if you so desire. Now, the downside of this C2 and C6 swap, well, Furina's big healing capabilities and her on-field driver abilities as a Hydro damage dealer, while maybe not necessarily the most meta thing, was something I know a lot of players were looking forward to. So if you're looking forward to that Hydro imbue for your Furina on the Constellation 2, you're gonna have to go all the way to Constellation 6 for that. Now, in addition to that, the biggest benefit from the Constellation 6 was the fact that she would also be able to heal your party members while in her DPS form. That's not necessarily true anymore. That old Constellation 2 is now the Constellation 6, so the damage bonuses that you gain, the Hydro imbue that you gain, that healing you'd gain in damage form, that all is going to be sadly locked all the way behind C6. So if you're looking for that playstyle for your Furina, it's going to take a lot more luck or a lot more money for you to gain access to that. With that being said, though, at the actual support style, play style that Furina is at Constellation 0 does just get better at C2. She's an HP scaling character. You're going to get increased maximum health for that Constellation 2. You're going to be able to gain faster fanfare stacks and have more fanfare stacks. So if you have C1 in C2, you can give 100% bonus damage to everyone in your party at your 400 fanfare stack limit. You're going to start with 150 free fanfare stacks and also gain your fanfare stacks even faster, which is going to allow you to use Furina in more teams, because not every team is going to be able to maximize the efficiency of gaining and losing HP at the same time. Some parties and teammates will be able to max out your fanfare stacks pretty easily with AoE heals, but some of them won't be able to do so. And so if you have Constellation 2, that's going to help you maintain that fanfare stack gain increase by a very large amount. And also remember, back with the actual buff to her elemental burst, you won't ever lose them as long as you have the energy recharge to maintain that 100% uptime on your elemental burst. So in essence, you're going to need a little bit less ER than before. You're going to be able to drain your own HP a little bit faster to increase the amount of healing that you can receive to gain those fanfare stacks. You can have 100% uptime on your fanfare stacks from the elemental burst, and you'll also be able to achieve a 100% fanfare stack amount, allowing those to never wear off from what we see now anyway. If this sounds good to you, you let me know down below. Comment what your favorite thing about Furina is now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, guys.